For nearly 18 years, one of the most influential figures in human history completely disappeared from written records. The man we know as Jesus Christ vanishes from the historical and biblical narrative around the age of 12, only to reappear suddenly at the age of 30. This enormous gap in his life story is one of history's most profound and enduring mysteries. Where was he? What was he doing? And how did those silent years shape the man who would change the world? The Gospels provide us with a few key moments from his early life. We see his birth in Bethlehem, his family's flight to Egypt, and a fascinating account of him at 12 years old, astonishing the elders in the temple at Jerusalem with his wisdom. And then nothing. The next time we see him, he is a man of about 30 being baptized in the Jordan River by John the Baptist, ready to begin his public ministry. The years in between, from adolescence to manhood, are a complete blank. This period is often called the silent years or the lost years for nearly 2 decades. The historical record falls quiet. There are no definitive accounts, no letters, no contemporary records detailing his life during this crucial time of development. It's a void that has captivated scholars, theologians, and the public for centuries, leading to a host of theories and speculations. But what if the answer is simpler and far more human than we imagine? The most widely accepted and historically plausible explanation is that Jesus lived an ordinary life. He likely remained in his hometown of Nazareth in the region of Galilee. He would have followed in the footsteps of his earthly father, Joseph, working as a tekton, a Greek word often translated as carpenter, but which more accurately means a craftsman or artisan. This was a life of physical labor. He would have worked with wood, stone, and metal, building homes, furniture, and tools for the people of his village. Imagine a young man waking before dawn, his hands calloused from work, his body tired from a long day under the Middle Eastern sun. He wasn't a king or a scholar in a grand library. He was a common man living among the poor and the marginalized. He would have experienced the daily struggles of life in a Roman-occupied territory, the heavy taxes, the constant presence of soldiers, the sickness and poverty that afflicted his neighbors. He would have attended synagogue on the Sabbath, studied the Hebrew scriptures, and participated in the life of his community. This life, though unrecorded, would have been profoundly educational. It wasn't about traveling to distant lands to learn exotic wisdom, as some theories suggest. Instead, his wisdom may have been forged in the crucible of ordinary human experience by living and working alongside everyday people. He would have gained a deep and intimate understanding of their suffering, their hopes, and their faith. He would have seen injustice firsthand. He would have felt the weight of hardship and the quiet dignity of those who endure it. This period of silence wasn't an empty wait. It was a time of preparation, of deep internal growth. A young man doesn't become a profound teacher overnight. It requires years of observation, reflection, and maturation. Jesus would have been watching, listening, and developing the core principles that would later form the foundation of his message. His parables, filled with imagery of farming, fishing, and shepherding, were not abstract concepts. They were drawn from the world he knew intimately, the world he lived in during those 18 unrecorded years. Why did he remain silent for so long? Perhaps he was waiting for the right moment, a concept in Greek known as kairos, the opportune time. In Jewish tradition, men often didn't begin public teaching until they reached the age of 30, a time when they were considered to have reached full maturity. His silence may have been a period of patient obedience, a time to honor his family and fulfill his duties as a son and a craftsman before embarking on his public mission. It was a time to become fully human before revealing the divine. This wasn't a passive silence, but an active, formative one. It wasn't the quiet rhythm of daily life in the dust of the workshop, in the shared meals with his family, in the weekly prayers at the synagogue that his character was honed. He learned empathy not from books, but from witnessing the grief of a neighbor. He understood forgiveness not as a theological idea, but as a real-life necessity in a small, close-knit community. These years grounded him, connecting him to the very people he would later seek to inspire. The lack of a grand story for these years is, in itself, powerful. It suggests that greatness isn't always born from extraordinary adventures, but can emerge from a life of quiet integrity and service. It makes his figure more accessible, more relatable. He wasn't separated from humanity. He was deeply embedded within it. He knew what it was like to be tired, to be hungry, to feel the strain of labor and the joys of simple community. So, when he finally began his ministry, his words carried the weight of lived experience. His message of compassion for the poor, the sick, and the outcast wasn't a political slogan. It was the natural outflow of a life spent among them. His teachings on love, humility, and justice were not abstract ideals but principles he had lived by in the quiet obscurity of Nazareth. The mystery of the missing 18 years may never be solved with historical certainty. There are no hidden gospels or archaeological discoveries that definitively fill the gap, but perhaps the lack of a record is the record. The silence speaks volumes. It tells us that this was a time for being, not for doing. A time for learning, not for teaching. A time for becoming the man he needed to be before he could deliver the message that would echo through millennia. The true significance of these years lies not in what he did, but in what they made him. They were the soil in which his message took root. They transformed a boy from Nazareth into a teacher whose influence would transcend empires and ages. In the end, the years we know the least about may have been the very years that shaped the man the world remembers the most.